Welcome to Entrepreneurs in Art and Entertainment. I'm Joe Hayes. Today we got a special treat in store with the Children's Museum. We're going to be talking to Chris Seale, who is the operations manager for Fantasy International. That's the laser light show that's got their laser light show in the Children's Museum. So stay tuned as we talk to Chris about the laser light show. All right, today we're here with Chris Seale at the Children's Museum. Chris, could you give us a little indication of what you do here at the Children's Museum?
Yeah, I run laser light shows down in the planetarium.
How long have you been doing this?
Laser light shows here have been running for about 2 months. And I've been working with laser light shows with Laser Fantasy for a little over 2 years.
Okay, can you go into a little bit how you got started working for Laser Fantasy?
Sure. While I was in school, one of the times I was in school, I worked at the Pacific Science Center, which is a museum in Seattle that's a lot like the Children's Museum. And I had a job there working as floor staff, just working with the kids out in the exhibits. And in the process with that, I worked with the folks who did laser shows there at that museum. And over time, I got an opportunity to work just as a part-time show performer, and got into that and liked it, and ended up working in several other museums doing the same thing.
When you started in Seattle, where has your travels taken you so far?
Well, the first big trip was to Cincinnati. That was when I got the big promotion to a full-time job in the company, and we started running shows in Cincinnati there in November '93, and that was just a 6-month deal that turned into a permanent deal, and I was there for a little over a year. Since then, I've been through Richmond, spent a little bit of time in Philadelphia, and came here.
Was there ever a point that you decided you knew you wanted to work in laser lighting, or was it just something that you just stumbled across and seemed interesting at the time?
Oh, I just got lucky. I really was in the right place at the right time, and took the shot at it almost on a whim. I was looking for a new job, looking for something else to do just on top of the work at the Science Center, and knew just from spending a lot of time in shows it looked like something fun to do, but I didn't think at the time that was my future. And over time, I've found that it's something I really enjoy, so I'm sticking with it.
Can you describe some of your duties as operations manager? I mean, it sounds like such a big title.
Oh, isn't it great? I have the best job title in the world. I do a lot of little things, and the most important thing is actually running a lot of the shows here. I do have a part-time employee who runs some of the matinee shows, and who'll be doing some of the evening rock and roll shows soon. But that's definitely a big thing. Is our shows are a live performance, and there's someone at the control console controlling the color, controlling the size of the images that our projector draws. That's a big thing that I do, is actually being in the shows and working, talking to the audience and getting them hyped up for the show, and then performing the show for them. I do spend a lot of time outside of shows, practicing the shows, making sure I know what I'm doing when I get in to do a new show. Spend a lot of time working with my part-time guy in training him to do the job. But there are a lot of other things outside of that, just administrative work, working with the museum staff and coordinating promotion for the show, working with the radio station that we advertise on, giving interviews, that kind of thing that comes along with the job.
Can you explain a little bit of the process of how it goes on in designing a laser light show? I know it's a lot more than just going in and pushing buttons.
Sure. Well, to put a show together, the production staff back in Seattle is 4 or 5 people. We start with an animator, and it's just like a cartoon animator, who will draw out line images of the basic picture, and then we'll hand those off frame by frame. Those get digitized by another person who enters those point by point, frame by frame into a computer. From there, we also, that's about 20% of the show is cartoon animation like that. A lot of it is abstract animation or analog animation, which is just set up sine wave synthesizer that is done by another person, our analog programmer who puts together the rest of the show. And then that person, working with the help of another person, actually constructs the whole show from the digital pieces, the line animation pieces, the abstract stuff, actually finally piece it all together into the complete show. So there's 4 people there, and then their boss who supervises. He's a good supervisor. That's what he does. He manages. They work.
Is the design basically, is it basically the total of everyone's input, or does each person have input to each different segment that goes into it?
That varies. The analog stuff, for example, the abstract stuff, is one person sitting down and deciding, okay, well, this music sounds like it would look like this, and he'll program an image out. That's pretty much up to him. He doesn't have anyone else helping him do it. A lot of times he will ask for advice. He'll say, what do you think of this? Which of these 3 different things do you like best? The same thing is true with the digital animation. When they're putting a show together, they'll sit down and go through, okay, here, what songs are we going to do? And that's 3 or 4 people sitting down deciding, what songs should we do for a Pearl Jam show? What songs should we do for a Grateful Dead show? What are the songs that are going to make a solid show? Okay, in these songs, what part should be the cartoon animation? What part should be abstract? And then the cartoon guy will decide, okay, what are we going to do with this? He'll be the guy who's actually got to draw the pictures, but he'll have input from the rest of the programming staff on what would be a good cartoon sequence to do. So there are different people with different responsibilities, but they do work together as a team to come up with a good, solid show.
What elements do you use in how you run the light show? I mean, is it something that you try to just go through the music and try to pick some elements that kind of capture your attention, or is it something you kind of go on crowd response?
Some of both. I always encourage the audience to make some noise, to let me know when they've seen something they'd like. That kind of reaction tells me when I'm doing the right thing, tells me when I'm doing something that's effective. It really is an art, it's performance. And so I try to save my good effects for later in the show, try and pace it out so that I don't give away all my best stunts early on. I definitely need some response to go off of, but I also, in practicing, I get some experience over time with, okay, here's an effect that's going to work well with the imagery in this song, in this particular show. I try and work very closely with the music too. That's what the practice time is all about. It's learning what shapes have been programmed for me by the programming staff, but just as importantly, I have to learn the music. I have to learn every little musical nuance in Stairway to Heaven, and believe me, I know that song pretty well over time. And I get to know there's an awful lot of musical depth and artistic depth to Pink Floyd, and that's something that I think a lot of people won't be surprised by, but over a couple of years of doing this, it's really been an education for me in just how amazing some of this music really is. I'm looking for just little audio things that I can highlight with color changes and special effects, and there's a lot to it in the music that we use.
You're talking about your practice time. Is that basically just a time for you to go in and maybe play with the equipment a little bit? I mean,
yeah.
You only say you've been doing this 2 years, so it's kind of like an ongoing learning process for you.
Sure. I'm always learning new things. It is. It's and that can be a lot of fun. When I get a good audience in there, that's the best fun I have, performing for an audience that's having a really good time. But I can have just as much fun going in there after hours, turning all the stuff on, turning on that great planetarium sound system, which is certainly a big draw for us. We've got a better sound system than anyone else is ever going to listen to their music on. And just putting in a new show tape and saying, well, let's see what we can do with this. Trying some new effects and new ideas that I don't want to test out on a live audience. It's kind of a real guideline that 70 or 80% of the new ideas I try don't work. So I do have to practice them.
What creative aspects do you like about your job?
Oh boy, this is fun for me because this is, boy, I keep coming back to that word, fun. It is, and that's what keeps me doing it. First artistic thing I've ever done, and it's really.
So you don't have any background in art whatsoever?
No, I sure don't. I sure don't. I've enjoyed music. I've got a pretty big music collection. And that's the one thing that makes sense about me up doing this, because it's not very characteristic for what I did growing up. It's a very artistic thing, and it's something that I've had to get in and just learn basics of performance and presentation, you know. And that comes from when the audience comes in the door, how you deal with them, you know, what you say to them to get them ready for the show, get them in the mood that you want them to. Presentation and pacing and timing, that's all been things I've learned about that. You know, I learned about essentially on the job, just making it up as I go along. I have no idea what the question was, so I'm just babbling. But yeah, but it's been a real education for me in art.
Can you talk a little bit about the equipment that you have here in the Children's Museum in the planetarium?
Sure. We have a projector with 3 laser heads in it. It's got 2 helium neon lasers and an argon laser. It's putting out a little over half a watt of light power. Just to go and get technical on you. What that means is that we've got 4 laser colors to work with. The argon gas laser puts out very specific frequencies of light, and that's kind of what's neat about lasers, is the way that they generate light. They generate it on a discrete frequency. They generate it in coherent beam, which means that all the little light waves are working with each other and reinforcing each other. The argon puts out dark blue, light blue, and green, really bright green. The helium neon lasers put out a very vivid red. Our system uses a series of prisms to break the light up into its component frequencies, mirrors which manipulate it around and line them up into a stack, and then manipulate them up and down to pick which color I'm going to use in it, or which combination of colors I'll use for a different part of the show. The actual images on the dome are drawn with a couple of teeny tiny little mirrors. They're about that big. They're a ½ inch by a ¼ inch. They're hooked to a galvanometer motor, which is kind of like a little servo motor. It just moves them back and forth, moves them really quickly, up to several thousand times a second, which still blows my mind. You know, even going up there and looking at them, I can't believe that they're moving as fast as they are, but they are. And one moves up and down, the other one moves left and right, and that's how we put the dot of light where it's going, by moving that dot of light around on the dome really quickly. We move it fast enough that persistence of vision kicks in, just like with television or movies. The human eye can't process, and the brain can't process the information fast enough, so it looks as though we're drawing sophisticated pictures with a dot of light. There are several different things that go on in the projector that are controlled live from my control console. And that's moving mirrors around to adjust where the images are centered, moving different mirrors around to adjust what color we'll draw, moving some small plastic filters that pop up in front of the laser and change the dynamics of the image, defocus it, or multiply the image with the diffraction grading. All sorts of neato little tricks in the system that give me the ability to do different effects. Well, the great thing about doing shows in a planetarium theater like this is gives us a lot of extra goodies to work with. You know, certainly starting out with the star projector here in the Space Quest Planetarium. Here we have a Digistar, which is brand new planetarium technology. Rather than using a large, elaborate mechanical projector like the big bug that you might be used to in older planetariums, this actually uses essentially projection TV technology. Allows us to project stars up on the dome, manipulate them, move them around a lot faster than an analog machine can do. We can do fly-through effects where we actually get the appearance of moving through a star field. can be very disorienting and very effective. The impact on the audience is pretty impressive. We've got a number of other effects we get to play with here, from the rotating beacon lights to the robot hides down in this cage here, and we bring him out, or got to bring Ace out every once in a while and show him off. Strobe lights around the edge of the theater. You'll see on the cove shelf everything from video projectors to over 50 slide projectors. Some of them are set up in a panorama, which will actually cover the entire dome with an integrated slide effect. We try and work in as many of these as we can, and that's one more way that we can make every show an individual experience.
What shows are you showing right now? What shows do you have designed for?
Right now here at the Children's Museum, we're showing rock and roll shows with Pink Floyd and with Led Zeppelin, and each of those shows just features about 45 minutes to an hour of kind of the best music from the artist. We do have a children's matinee that we run during the day, and the show we're running right now is Peter and the Wolf. It's set to the classic children's tale and the music. We have a wide variety of other shows in our library. Laser Fantasy puts together 4 or 5 new shows a year, and we try not to bring them in any more frequently than that, because we do have limits to how many shows we've got to work with. So we'll bring a new show in every few months.
Could you talk about some of the shows that are on the horizon?
Yeah, we have a show that I think might do well here, set to the Grateful Dead. There's been a lot of interest from the audience in Laser Dead. We have a modern rock show that's called Laserpalooza that I'm hoping we'll have the opportunity to run here. It's set to some of the modern alternative rock with a bunch of Seattle bands and Nine Inch Nails and Ministry and Stone Temple Pilots. It's an exciting show, but it's one that I have to persuade the Children's Museum is appropriate for their venue. I think that they'll find it would be a very successful show for them to run. We've got a whole lot of classic rock. We've from the Doors to Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles even. Those always work well, and down the road you can see shows like that here.
As far as the music goes, what's your favorite?
My favorite? Boy, Zeppelin was the first show I ever ran, and surprisingly enough, I don't hate it yet. I do like the Laserpalooza show a lot. That's a lot of fun. Probably that's my favorite music of the shows that Laser Fantasy runs. But there's something about a laser show, about performing the shows and working with the audiences. Every time I do a show, even if it's music that either I didn't really like that much or that I didn't even know very well, after I run the show for a couple of months, boy, hey, I like it. I became a Metallica fan that way. Laser Metallica converted me. Just working with it and having the audience respond well to a show really changes my attitude toward the music.
How about any embarrassing moments?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I can think of a couple. Well, about once a month I put the encore tape in first. The way we do our show, we do a 45-minute main show, and that's the end of it unless the audience is having a really good time. They can talk me into playing an extra song, or sometimes even 2 if they're really good. We keep a couple of extra songs on a separate tape, the music and the programming for it, and every once in a while I just pop the other one in, and that would be fine, except that it's going to be 2 songs, and then I'll have to improvise my way into it. So maybe you have to be there, but to me it's like, oh, I know instantly the first 3 seconds of music, oh, that's the wrong tape, I got to stop this now. That kind of eliminates any impression of professionalism right there. Sometimes there will be people in the audience who maybe have had a beer or have had 5 or 6 or 12 beers and are not quite ready to be part of a fun, friendly, appropriate staff audience, and that can make my job very challenging, finding a way to calm them down. That can lead to some embarrassing moments. Keeps life interesting. We're working in the dark, and it's about once a month, and it's very dark in the theater, darker than a movie theater. And it always cracks me up when about once a month someone will decide, well, I'll just light up a cigarette, no one will notice. It's like, a lighter in that theater is pretty bright. So, yeah. Oh, no one will notice. Yeah, everyone notices right up. We get some funny people in there. There's the guy, actually it's got to be more than one person because it happens almost every night, who I'll get done with the main show and they'll say, play some Skinnerd! No, I'm sorry, I don't have Freebird programs. So.
Is that just in Indianapolis or is that everywhere?
It didn't happen in Seattle, but it sure did happen in Cincinnati. Skinnerd! What is it with Skinnerd? Someone will have to explain that to me sometime.
Compared to other cities, how do you compare Indianapolis?
Whew, I'll tell you when I actually have time to get out and find out. Well, I just came from Cincinnati. It's very similar. Moving from Seattle to Cincinnati was an adaptation for me. It was a little different. The museum I work in here is a blast. I'm very impressed. It's just a sharp museum, all in all, and the staff has been really good to work with. They've really kind of integrated me into their team, and working as a contractor like I do, that's not always the case. Makes it a lot easier to be here when they're looking at me to be part of the whole picture. It's been good so far. I've been here long enough to really get out and learn about the town, so ask me in 6 months.
What advice could you give anyone who is interested in a career in laser lighting?
A career in laser lights. Don't look directly into the laser. I strongly recommend you avoid that. That's important. How to do it? Boy, if you really want to, one way to do it to get into this is find a way to hang around the planetarium, and you can do that by coming down and volunteering at the museum. Right now, we're looking for volunteers to come down and be ushers for the rock and roll shows. So if that'd be a good way to get into it, is come down, volunteer. You can see the laser shows for free. That's a good compensation for them on that. But that's essentially how I ended up in it. Is I had a job which let me hang around the laser theater and spend time there and be involved in it. And when the opportunity came up, I was able to pursue it. It's a small industry, and there's a lot of small companies working in it. So it's not the kind of thing that's necessarily easy to fall into, but it's not so easy to find a way to get into it. But being that the companies are all small, once you're in the door, if you're good, if you learn quickly, if you're willing to take some initiative to get things done, it's easy to catch your supervisor's attention and really run with it. I think that's a lot of what's attracted me to the business, is it's been something that I've been able to dive into without a college degree, without a lot of comparable and relevant experience, and just because of my interest in it, been able to really dive in with both feet and go quite a ways in just a couple of years.
When I look out into your eyes out there, when I look out into your faces, you know what I see? I see a little bit of Elvis in each and every one of you out there. Let me tell you, well, Elvis is everywhere. Elvis is everything. Elvis is everybody. Elvis is still the king. Man, what I want you to see is that the king is inside of you and me. Wow. Man, there's a lot of unexplained phenomenon out there in the world. A lot of things people say, what the heck's going on? Let me tell ya. Who built the pyramids? Elvis. Who built Stonehenge? Elvis. Yeah, man, you see guys walking down the street pushing shopping carts, and they think they're talking to Allah. They're talking to themselves, man. No, they're talking to Elvis. Elvis. Elvis needs votes. Elvis needs votes. Elvis, 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 Elvis needs votes. Ah, the sailing Elvis. Captain Elvis. Commodore Elvis it is. Yeah, man, you know, people from outer space, they come up to me. They don't look like Dr. Spock. They don't look like Klingons, all that Star Trek jive. They look like Elvis. Elvis! Everybody in outer space looks like Elvis, because Elvis is a perfect being. We're all moving in perfect peace and harmony towards Elvisness. Soon all will become Elvis. Everything, everywhere will be Elvis. What do you think they call it evolution anyway? It's really Elvis-lution. Elvis-lution. Elvis is everywhere. Elvis is everything. Elvis is everybody. Elvis is still the king. Oh, man, what I want you to see when the beat oozes out of you and me. Elvis is everywhere. Elvis is everything. Elvis is everybody.